And we're back. Welcome back to Emma Knows Money. Emma Foulkes here with Stephanie Anderson, and we are rounding out. We're getting towards the end of the show, and we're going to talk about something that ties right in with estate planning. And you brought this up. We talked about care, and how people want to be cared for. What is one of the recommendations that you have when it comes to helping people facilitate how they want to be cared for?
Well, just be very clear about the type of care you want before we're in a situation where we have to make that decision for you.
Okay.
So if you're needing long-term care, you can no longer care for yourself. Do you want to be in a facility? Do you want to be in a nursing home? If that's not something that you want, do you want to stay at home?
Right.
All right. Well, if you want to stay at home, how are we going to pay for someone to be able to come in and make sure that you're cared for? So my first step with most clients is just make sure we're very clear on the type of care that you want. Once we know what that looks like, then we can start having a conversation about how to put some things in place.
Right. Now, having a provider can be extremely expensive.
Yes.
The friend that I was talking about, she, in her wishes were to stay at home and to have a nurse come in, and that's pretty expensive. It's almost like $200 to $300 per day.
Right.
So in the course of a year, over $80,000 was spent towards her care. But she got what she wanted, and she also had a long-term care policy in place. So that's where this is important in working with someone like myself, working with someone like Stephanie, so we can look at your assets and figure out, do you necessarily need a robust long-term care policy, or do you just need something to supplement?
Right.
Do you want to leave stuff behind for your kids, or to heck with your family? I'm liquidating
what I have.
Spending it all, right? And
yeah.
I think one of the biggest misconceptions, and tell me if you run across this, is people who think that Medicare is going to help pay for long-term care.
No, Medicare only pays for a very short period of time. So if you're needing long-term care beyond that time period, and we're talking about a couple of months tops, you have to be able to get Medicaid at that point. So Medicare will only pay for a certain short period of time.
Okay.
If you're needing long-term care beyond that, you've got to qualify for Medicaid. And with Medicaid, it's not enough that you're unable to do a certain number of activities of daily living. You've also got to be able to financially qualify. So that means basically, honestly, destitute.
Yeah, it was like financially qualify. It's something different. It's the reverse. It's like you have to basically not have any assets.
Yeah, you can have too much.
Right. And so there are cases where people will have a home. They stop kicking people out of their homes now. But if somebody's on Medicaid and they're in a facility, once that person passes away, the government's going to come and take that property.
Exactly.
So working with someone like Stephanie is going to help you know at what point in time can you actually give stuff away to your family, because the government also has what's called a look back
period.
So
they look back 5 years. So at the time you apply for Medicaid, they look back 5 years from the date of application, back 5 years, to see if you've done any type of transfers. Have you just given away property to try to be able to financially qualify for Medicaid? So we have to be really careful about what we're doing. Sometimes I'll hear people say, I'm just going to quick claim everything over to my kids. Just can't necessarily do that. Medicaid is looking at that,
right,
and they will penalize you.
And that's why and also to me, why planning needs to take place so much farther in advance, as opposed to by the time it's time for you to start needing the care, it's almost too late to do proper planning. Another question I have for you has to do with the repeal of the estate tax provision. Right now, what is that limit, that cap? I know for a single person, it's a certain amount, and for a married couple, it's a certain amount, and they're looking at repealing it, but I'm wondering who
would benefit from the repeal?
Yeah, who is it? Yeah. Is it going to help, the majority of Americans?
Well, my answer to that is no.
Okay.
The estate tax, or the repeal of the estate tax, would not help most of us.
Okay, so what is that limit?
So what the government, or the federal government, would say at this point anyway, what they say is that, hey, you can die as a single individual.
Okay.
You can die being worth $5.4 million.
Okay.
Okay. And that includes real estate, life insurance, retirement accounts, bank accounts, So they look at the value of your estate. If you're worth less than the $5.4 million, you're not going to owe the federal government any type of money, or your estate's not going to owe or have to write a check when you die.
Okay.
If you're married, you double that. So a married couple gets around $10.8 million. Okay. So with that being said, I think the last thing I read about this was that about 0.2% of Americans actually have an estate tax issue.
Over where they're over that 10.8 million or 5.4. Wow.
Exactly.
Okay.
So would the repeal help most Americans? No.
Because we're under the threshold
Most
anyway.
of us are not going to have an estate tax anyway. It would help the wealthiest of Americans to avoid that, but most of us don't have that. In Georgia anyway, we don't have a separate state death tax or estate tax.
Didn't know
so
that.
We're only concerned about the federal limit. There are certain states, New Jersey, I believe, has a state tax that's relatively low. I think around $900,000, right?
So if you have over $900,000, you owe them.
You're going to have to owe the state money.
You may not owe federal, but
you might owe the state. So we don't have to worry about that in Georgia. Most states don't have a separate estate tax. But there are a handful out there that do.
Okay. What about Florida, since we have a lot of snowbirds down there?
I don't know if they have an estate tax in Florida.
I would think they would.
Yeah.
But we'll find that. We're not there.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't do any work down there. So yeah. But with that being said, the repeal of the estate tax as it stands right now. Now, it was one point where the estate tax was much lower, $1 million.
Yes.
Yeah, that was going to affect middle class families. But the way it stands right now, the exemption is so high.
Not happening.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, if people want to get in touch with you, how you want to give your email address?
Yes. It's Stephanie, STEPHANIE at ATLestateplanning.com.
Okay. And that's right there. And your phone number?
It's 404-267-1377.
And are you on social media?
I am.
Do you have a Twitter?
I do.
Do you tweet?
Sometimes.
Okay. How can people find you on Twitter?
It's Anderson Law ATL.
Okay, yeah, Anderson Law ATL. Yeah. And what about your Facebook?
It's under Anderson Law Practice.
Awesome, yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
And if people want to reach out to you, if you have questions about estate planning, feel free to give Stephanie a call or shoot her an email. Tell her that you heard about her on Emma Knows Money, and she'll speak very nicely to you. I promise.
I promise too.
All right, thank you for coming in, Stephanie. I totally appreciate this.
Thank
this
you.
This was so needed.
Thanks for having
needed.
me. I appreciate it.
All right.